And here comes literally everyone marching all as one, screaming that you have to cut your kid. It was like being in a movie about a cult. Their entire attitude changed. They got pushy, threatening, and everything else. So be prepared for that.
We are back with Adam's final part 3 interview. If you missed part 1 and 2, you can go back and watch them before this one if you want.
How can intactivists convince circumcised men that we are on their side?
You're dealing with a serious trauma victim, for starters, so kid gloves are required. A sympathetic approach is better than an aggressive approach all day. You win more flies with honey. Being aggressive, being mean does not win these guys over. You're not going to get their vote that way. Anybody that's watched one of those videos where it's actually been done, it's gut churning. I, as a grown man who have seen absolutely horrible things in my life, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. Right? I'm sure you being in this community, you've probably seen the videos too. It's one of the darker things that float around on the internet. I think some of the attempts to maybe undo the damage medically, groups like Foragen and stuff, are kind of controversial because they're just kind of vaporware. They've been in the works forever. Are they going to happen? Or are they not going to happen? I don't know. Pointing out that those things do exist helps some guys cope in the early times. Restoration, some of these guys that have managed to restore, pointing them out makes it not seem so hopeless, right? I know I beat on this for a minute ago. One of our key talking points has to be that we've got to minimize the amount of damage this is going to do to guys from a social aspect. You don't want a bunch of guys that think they're just going to be left out in the cold because they got on this movement. That's not desirable in the least. That's one of the worst outcomes you can have.
We have to let them know that we're bringing them in from the cold.
Absolutely. This is a safe haven at the end of the day. I want them to feel like they will have more for joining the movement, not less. Let me put it that way.
A community?
Yeah. I don't want these guys to think they're going to die alone just because they admitted something bad was done to them. If you ignore the instability it causes in a relationship, if you ignore what's been done to you, and you try to carry on as though you're perfectly fine, perfectly normal, and everything's, hunky-dory and your equipment works just like it would had it not been done, you're going to experience some rough relationships. You're going to have relationships that fall apart because you've got an issue in the relationship that's not being dealt with. If you want a consistent relationship, one that lasts, it's got to be one that's based around reality. And the reality is your sex parts don't work the way they're supposed to. It's not just fine. It's not okay. It doesn't work great. You got to do some things to make it work. So I think pointing that out might actually help. If they know that acknowledging reality, acknowledging the damage, and working around it is going to lead to a more stable relationship and a more stable future, I think that's more desirable. I think that's going to bring more people over rather than running guys down, telling them they got broken equipment. I don't think that's good. We can explain to them, okay, if you know about it, you work around reality, you're going to have a better time in life than you would if you didn't. That's the way to go.
The movement needs more people. When we have more, then we'll be able to welcome more people in and do more because it'll be widespread throughout the country. So what inspires people to do this?
Well, any form of activism, it takes a different type of person. Because, your average person, they're a path of least resistance kind of people, most people. It takes somebody willing to go against the grain, push against the tide. People that don't take the easy way. You're not looking for an average Joe. You can't get people to type in their own URLs. That's like 5 seconds of typing in most cases. They don't want to do that. They're that lazy, right? That's your average person. Your average person won't switch social media sites because they'll have to create a new account once. They're willing to stay on platforms that overtly censor them, browbeat them at every turn. They won't leave these sites because they will have to type in a username and create a password. That's too much work. You don't want those people. They're not coming here anyway. You've got to target the fringes. Every movement in history has always come out of the fringes. The youth, these guys that are coming of age, they're your prime targets. If you want to bring more people into the fold, I think you're like 18 to 20-year-olds are ripe, right? They're becoming sexually active. I think by the time you hit about 21, you've already had a relationship problem from it. You may not have realized you had a relationship problem from it, but you did. So approaching those guys, giving them a way out of just dead-end relationship after dead-end relationship before it becomes a problem, it'd be better. Bringing in people that are not victims of it is great, but, again, you got to find those people that are willing to work. Because it's not free, right? Even if you do online activism, it's not free. It's almost a full-time job, right? You're having to interact with people, you're having to reply to comments constantly, and you engage in arguments, which are not always fun. Target people that are, one, not lazy. Peer pressure is great. And I think we're going to have that on our side moving forward. Not right now, right? Right now we don't. But I think in the coming years, especially as the boomers die off, I think we're going to have probably the majority of people that are not cut. A couple generations anyway. The next generation for sure. I think the Zoomers, definitely. I don't think it's going to be a normal thing forever. I can already see it fading. 5-10 years ago, these conversations weren't held in public. We're talking about Paradise PD, and whatever you think about that episode, what you think is positive, negative, whatever. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen that conversation on television.
Do you know about Cockfight? They're like the Bloodstained Men, but they do it at college events, usually football games, at the Super Bowl after party. Yeah, and it's good because they're usually around college students. That's the majority of the people they're around who are at the age where they're about to have kids. And they don't wear bloodstains, which
Yeah,
I think is better. I think the bloodstain is unattractive.
it definitely is visually striking.
This country doesn't care too much about men's rights, and the bloodstains
No.
show that you're a victim. Well,
Yeah.
if you don't care, then it doesn't help, It's like I'm a victim.
That's true.
People don't care, though. So.
You do have to foster a world where people are going to care about men's rights. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, like you said, you just can't preach to a bunch of people that don't care.
Why is it that parents who know circumcision is harmful still circumcise their sons anyway?
I think it's peer pressure. They don't want to be ostracized by their family. They don't want to get cast out. They're terrified of the social consequences of not doing it. They're really worried that little community will judge them heavily for it, and they're not entirely wrong. It takes a pretty brave person to go against that tide. I believe in people. I think eventually we can get there.
How do you think the activist groups can improve their cohesion with each other?
That's a good question. In recent years, social media has been huge for us. I don't know if it's going to maintain being that safe place for us for very long. Look, we've all seen it, right? We've all been censored. We've all had our accounts suspended. Everybody in the community has at some point. I think that'll probably get worse, not better. We need to find redundant communications. I think some of these end-to-end encrypted chat programs are great, like Element and Telegram and things like that, where the end user controls their conversation. I think we need to set up groups on those and get away from maybe some of the social media, because I don't think those are going to be safe places moving forward. With everything, you have to find common ground with different groups. I didn't know about Cockfight. That's interesting. Definitely going to check them out.
What do you think another good place to speak on is than social media?
Real life socialization is kind of dying. People used to hang out at coffee shops and stuff, and that stuff's kind of going the way of the dinosaur. Message boards. I think most social happenings are occurring online. They are in cyberspace. I don't necessarily like that. I think it's important to have physical gatherings, but that's getting harder and harder. I think message boards, Telegram groups, element groups, things like that. I think that's a good way, because that's controlled by you. They can't come in and shut it down because they can't censor it because they don't know what you're saying because it's end-to-end encrypted. The person in the middle doesn't hold the keys, so they don't know what's being said. I think that's a good way to communicate. I think there's alternative internet technologies that are kind of popping up. Things like ZeroNet. I think that's kind of hard to shut down. I have qualms with it. I don't know if I would just go download ZeroNet and start using it willy-nilly, but it is interesting tech. I think if we set up like maybe a message board on a group like that, that might be the thing on a system like ZeroNet, because at that point, it's not controlled by big tech. They can't just shut you down. I think at some point the conversation is going to be so big it may be ugly for them to shut it down. I'm seeing kind of that. So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong about social media in the long run. It's just speculation on my part, but I don't know. The way things trend is towards more censorship, not less, it seems.
What would you say to a parent who knows they'll be pressured by the doctor to have their son circumcised?
Oh, yeah. So this is an interesting one. I had to fight both families and the mother. Nobody was on my side. There was nobody. When my son was born, we had an extended stay in the hospital. I think we were there for 3 days. And I sat in a chair by his little crib. Lucky for him, I'm a light sleeper because they picked him up and were trying to carry him out of the room to cut him. That devolved into angry words on my part and him being placed back and not touched again. I think past a certain point, especially if you're the guy in the relationship, you got to get a little pushy. Well, I guess that goes for the women too, right? You've got to get pushy because they're going to push hard. It's cult behavior. It was the strangest thing for me because I really hadn't been exposed to this community. I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, I was a little shocked at even being a parent. And here comes literally everyone marching, all as one, screaming that you have to cut your kid. It was like being in a movie about a cult. It was like being in like The Wicker Man or something. It was crazy. It felt like some Jonestown stuff. It was like everybody that I thought I knew was nothing like I thought they were, right? Their entire attitude changed. They got pushy, threatening, and everything else. So be prepared for that. It's not an easy road to walk. Absolutely not. If you are a parent and you're expect a whole bunch of people, doctor included, and you got to understand those doctors make money. They make money off this practice. They cut the kid and then they sell that kid off to labs and makeup companies for a lot of money and getting paid to do the operation for the materials they're stealing from your child's body, or the organs they harvest, right? Call it what it is. It's organ harvesting. They are organ harvesting. And I will never get over seeing what was a Sandra Bullock talk about smearing baby penis on her face. That was vile. All respect for the woman went out the window immediately. Anyway, be prepared for that because your doctor is going to lie to you. Do not retract because they're going to tell you that. The doctor is going to come along, and that's ruthless. It's so ruthless because they're going to come along and they're going to be like, well, you've got to retract it and clean it. My son's mother fell for this. We separated shortly after the birth because of all this. She's like, I'm retracting it and cleaning it, and it hurts him so bad. We need to cut him. Like, don't retract him, you idiot. Right? What the doctor said, I'm like, I don't care what the doctor said. The doctor's a con artist. He's trying to get you to mess up. Look, right now, they're telling women don't douche. Don't use douche products because it messes up the microbiome in the vagina, and that causes yeast infections. You're getting rid of all that healthy bacteria. It causes yeast infections. That doctor is being ruthless. They pretend like they don't know, oh, you just got to retract it and clean it. You're creating an infection, and you know you're creating an infection because in this day and age, there's no plausible deniability on that. You know that you're messing up the microbiome by doing that. So when you give that bad advice out to parents, you're doing it willfully. And so these doctors know they're going to make that money. They want the practice to continue. They're marching as a group, as an occupational community. They want to keep doing this. And so they spread this information on purpose so you'll injure your son to keep it happening. And you'll be like, well, it's an infection. And they'll be like, we told you so. That's absolutely vile.
Hey guys, it's me, Pots. I'm briefly interrupting this interview to let you know about the Pots e-commerce program. It is vital to keeping the Prevail Over the System channel alive. Go and join us on our Discord to learn more. And best of all, it's free to partake in the Pots e-commerce program, and we don't need any of your information whatsoever. This helps us keep the interviews coming along with other Intactivist content to empower, teach, and update Intactivists with very important information, as well as being the voice for the Intactivist public. Thank you all so much. Okay, now back to the interview.
If you were leading an Intactivist team and you were speaking to them before you went out into the public, what would you tell them about how to talk to people?
For starters, greet people with a smile even when they don't greet you with one. It's just good PR, right? If you've ever worked retail, stay smiling. People respond positively to it. Meet criticism with humor wherever you can. We're back to that. If you can make people laugh, you win more of the audience over. You may not win an individual over, but you win the audience over. Optics matter, but don't sweat them so much that you end up inactive. Anytime you're dealing with the public, it's all about first impression. And remember, you're speaking to the crowd because everybody's got a cell phone these days. If I were leading a group, I would do some bubble maps. I would know my demographic anywhere I went. I would look at hard demographics for every neighborhood I went into before I went into it.
What would be the demographic characteristics that you would be conscious of that's really important in this?
Everywhere you go is going to be a little different. I would look at ethnicity, right? Because they're going to be facing different issues. I know it seems like genital mutilation is going to affect everybody the same. It's not. People are dealing with different socioeconomic backgrounds. Somebody from a wealthier background might be a little more accepting, maybe a little less accepting than somebody that's not. I would want to talk about everything I could face on the street before I faced it. I'd sit down and do bubble maps. I would not just walk into the thing blind. That's not how I roll. I would have a brainstorming session before I rolled out. It may not take very long, but I would definitely do that. I want to know the people I'm trying to approach and how to best approach them. If they roll up to me, I want to have a full, genuine conversation with them. I don't want to seem like I'm detached, right? Or maybe talking about something that doesn't apply to the demographic of the area I'm working in. You mentioned the blood stain. I know that's going to be polarizing, but I pretty much agree that it's shocking, and I get that that's part of the point. But like you said, you know, you're kind of falling on deaf ears if you're talking to a society that doesn't care about men's rights to begin with. So you need to know
have
that.
Your Intactivist group dress.
Wow, that's a good question. It may actually be beneficial just to have them dressed like the rest of the public, really. Just plain folks works for a reason. There's a reason why politicians do it. You'll see them do that just plain folks engagement sometimes, where like they'll roll out in blue jeans and a button-up farmer shirt or whatever. Wherever they're going, they try to appeal. They'll do campaigns where they mix up with people. Your lower politicians, they will definitely roll out, throw on the blue jeans and the straw hats back in the day. If you've taken government politics, they talk about just plain folks. It works.
Did Ronald Reagan wear that?
So
makes me think of him.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did do that. Yeah, I think he did that more than once. Yeah. Ronald Reagan. He sure did. I think so. I think he drove a Subaru Brat around too. It was a chicken truck. He was proud of it because it was a way for a common man to get around the chicken tax. And I think that was more of that just plain folk stuff too. Hey, I'm just like you. I wear blue jeans, drive a Subaru Brat. Yeah. I know a lot of organizations like uniforms. I don't know if I'd put people in uniforms so much. I think the public may be tired on that too, right? Advertising fatigue. I think there's a lot of bad association with uniforms and mass identifiers and things like that. If I approach you in blue jeans and a t-shirt and I have a conversation with you, maybe I seem a little more like a person, a little less like some sort of organized push. People are getting tired of pushes. It's probably not a good time to seem that way. That's just my 2 cents. But, you know, that's the thing about that brainstorming session, too, because I could be wrong about this. You sit down and you got to hash this stuff out as a group. That's why you have a group.
If you were outside talking to people during an Intactivist assembly, what would you start the conversation with, knowing that you don't have much time with them, so you need to start with the important facts?
I think comparing male genital mutilation to female genital mutilation, that's big. I think it's hard for the media to manipulate too. So if you're being interviewed, I think comparing male genital mutilation to female genital mutilation and not giving them a bunch of sound bites to work with, I think that would work well, because you can't really chop that up and make it look ridiculous. If I'm just talking to some average Joe, I might point out some of the statistics on how marriages and relationships work out for people that are mutilated, and point out that's what they're doing to their children. They're pretty much guaranteeing they're going to be in a semi-permanent or impermanent, temporary relationship their entire life, kind of dooming their kids to serial polygamy. I might point that out really quick. I think that hits pretty hard. Things like that. I think pointing out the destruction of the nerve endings, the male G-spot, the dependency on lubricants and erectile dysfunction medicine to perform, especially later in life. I think I get all that stuff out real quick. They might argue with you on the spot about the ED medicine and needing lubricant, but down the line, that's probably going to weigh on their mind. You're not winning somebody today, but you might be winning somebody a month or two from now. That's something to always keep in mind. You might have a vitriolic argument with somebody 1 minute, and then months down the line, they change their mind. Don't ever count that out. It does happen. Make sure you're planting seeds. Anytime you talk to somebody, plant seeds.
And anything else?
No, that's about what I've got.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. It's been nice being here. It's been a good conversation. My name's Adam Bodferde. You can contact me. I have Facebook, of course. I've got a TikTok channel. They're just both under my name. I have an Odyssey channel, but I don't have the name of it on hand right now. So check me out on TikTok or Facebook. I have a Twitter, but it's not really used heavily. I don't mind being contacted. Anybody can contact me. Contact me if you love me. Contact me if you hate me.
Okay, that was Adam's final part 3 interview. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm going to put all of his links down in the description so you can follow him. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our other Intactivist interviews and our other Intactivist content that we release every single week. Please share and like this video to get this out to more people. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Bye!